Today, on the Culture of Currency, we are going to be talking about silver as one of the purest art forms out there. As somebody who has a degree in an art form, in this case music, I am somebody who has to understand what art is and be an expert at particular parts of an art form, like I said, in my case, music. And so for me, if I were to have to define art, which is something really hard to define because it's such an objective thing, I would have to say that it's a way to communicate the human experience in a way that is usually not just dialogue. I mean, there is an art form in writing and speaking, oration, but for me, the real art forms are going to be things like dance, fine art, orchestra, band, choirs, things like that. And what they're initially doing is communicating an experience, an experience in a way that invokes an emotional response. So if you were to go to a symphony and hear an amazing piece played for you, even though you cannot touch the sound in the room, it makes you feel a certain way. It communicates an experience that you can then identify with and carry on. If you were to go to a museum, let's say it's the Guggenheim in New York, where you are to look at pieces of art where you have oil, let's say, of different shades and varieties cast upon a canvas. And those little bitty pieces, those little bitty strokes of oil eventually make a scene that puts you in a place as the viewer where you can have an experience so that you understand what the artist intended and kind of get a little picture, a snapshot into that world, right? Dance is the same way. If you were to go watch Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker Ballet, you would probably be put in a place where you can identify what that was like for people and even go on a little bit of a journey through that storyline that gives you some type of an emotional response. And what we have here, what we love here on this channel is coinage, and silver coinage in particular. And this being bullion coins, where we are 4 nines or 3 nines pure silver, we are taking something at its most pure level as far as an element goes, and we're creating art with it. So it could be considered one of the most pure art forms out there because there's only one thing in these coins, and that's silver, which was created and not really changed in the form that we see here. So being a 3 or 4 9 silver. And I just pulled random stuff. So I have beautiful art pieces within silver, like Hokusai's Great Wave and things like that are all cast upon silver. But I wanted to show you by just pulling random things and showing you how these things communicate an experience in an artistic way. So we even see them on silver rounds, which are not coins, but they are basically bullion silver in what would look like a coin, but they're not issued by a government. So this right here is a lunar goat, which communicates the experience not just of the goat, but of Asian culture, as that's where the lunar cycle comes from, the 12 animals that have to race to the Jade Palace, and the order in which they race and the character of which they are portraying as the animal are synced up with the 12-year cycle. 2015 was the goat, right? Year of the goat, as you can see there. So this is communicating that lunar experience in Asian culture. And here's another example, the snake. So this, I believe, was 2013. Yeah, 2013, we have a snake. In fact, in Asia, a lot of times they wouldn't ask you, how old are you? But they would ask you, what's your sign? Are you a snake? Are you a tiger? Are you a dragon? And with that, they could probably get pretty close to your birthday just because they're very, very acute on understanding this cycle. And if you want to be even more specific, there are also elemental varieties. So if I were born in October of, let's say, 1986, then instead of just being a tiger, I would be a fire tiger. You could be a water horse. Or not horse, cow, or you could be a metal mouse or rat. So they all have different elements, which gets you even closer to your birth year and month. Here's another example in round form. We have a Aztec warrior, looks like an eagle warrior of some kind, which communicates the experience. It puts you in a place of what probably Central America would have looked like if we were to roll back the clock a few hundred years. On the back we have what I think is the calendar, but some type of art form here that would have been seen in their shrines or temples or whatever holy sites that they had. That's communicating an experience of a people. Those are rounds. These are examples of coins. This is going to be Canadian, so sometimes one side of the coin doesn't really have that story as much, though this does tell you something. It tells you that this is a Commonwealth country. But on the back here, we have the great horned owl, a beautiful depiction. This would be more what we consider academic classicism, where it's a very, very accurate scale and quality are all parts of the form, but it's communicating a story of an animal you would likely experience in the native land that issues this coin, which is Canada, one of the great predators of the sky, and the great horned owl. So that's what that's communicating as far as the art form is. If you were to go to Canada, you could likely see that. This is older. This is a silver dollar from back in the day, 1985 it looks like, and we have a moose here in the water. So what is this communicating? Well, the coin is about the national parks, and this is communicating an experience that you could see if you were to go to, let's say, outside of Calgary and just visit some of those parks and experience the beautiful flora and fauna. You could see this scene. Here's an interesting one. We have an African nation of Chad, which is in, I believe, Saharan Africa, Northern Saharan, if I remember correctly. And we have an Irish horse. Sorry, this was given to me by a viewer. And this here is communicating a sacred animal in the Celtic tradition, which is why we have the Celtic print on the inside. So it doesn't necessarily communicate the experience of an African in Chad, but rather another area that it's highlighting. In this case, it's the Celtic area, and this is a sacred animal in print. We have the Queen again, which tells you a little bit about where we're going. We also see that it's pounds. This is England. And here we have the amazing St. George the Valiant defeating the dragon, which is an interesting one because the artwork is communicating experiences of many people in many areas. This is a very widely used story in imagery, and we have evidence of it being used anywhere from Libya all the way up to Russia. There are slight variations in, let's say, the dragon and that type of thing, but this is very close to an ancient legend about saving virgins in a festered pond that is cursed and all this kind of stuff. Beautiful story. I have videos over all these coins if you want to watch, including this one. But yeah, that's what the art form is communicating, is the experience of the knight valiantly slaying the mighty dragon. Here we have Niue, hawksbill sea turtle. This is a sea turtle that is obviously in the ocean, but it is one that is definitely a calling card of Niue. And so if you were to visit this beautiful set of little bitty islands, this might be an animal that you might be able to see. And even more importantly, the people of Niue can look at this coin and say, hey, I love those things. That reminds me of my home or whatever. So it's kind of like a postcard. This is going to be an EC8 coin, so this is Caribbean, so we should see a Caribbean theme, and we do. Anguilla, this is their coat of arms, which a lot of people would say is boring. It kind of is, but it does communicate the experience of the people of Anguilla. Obviously, we have 3 dolphins here doing some type of dance in the water or jumping. I can't really tell which one, but that's their coat of arms, so there's a lot of people who would probably have pride just in seeing this. It invokes some patriotism within their land. This is a great example of how you get close, but you might not get it right. The art form should communicate the experience of a people. And in this case, it kind of does. We have the island right here of Anguilla, and they call Anguilla Anguilla because it's the word for eel, because as the cartographers were mapping out this island, it looked like an eel to them, so they called it an eel. Here's the issue. These two eels you see depicted are European eels. Their genus and species are Nguia nguia, but they are not necessarily eels you would find on the island. So I don't know if they're communicating the experience of the explorers, who this is the eel they would have known, or they just got the species wrong. But it's still a beautiful coin. Here's an example of a much older coin. This was given to me. We see Bahama Islands right there. We see a young Queen Elizabeth. And we have two flamingos. There's some crested water here, sun in the background. And this is a beautiful piece of art that is exhibiting an experience you might see if you were, let's say, catching the sunset out there in the Bahamas with the two flamingos just kind of doing flamingo things. Beautiful. Tokelau. You see the tribal print here, and we see the hahave, which is, no, not the hahave, what do they call that? Tuluma, which is their tackle box. And this is a masked owl. They have an owl series that communicates the different types of owls one is likely to see on their islands, native owls. Classic World Bullion coin, Australia, and of course, one of the most identifiable animals of their land. Right? It puts you in a place, which is what art is supposed to do. Communicate the experience of the artist. Native American, right here, this is going to be the Lakota tribe of Sioux, and we have a Indian warrior here. This looks like a chief. He's in regalia and with his Model 98 Winchester, most likely. But because he's in his regalia and not dressed for war, my guess is that this is actually the experience that would happen when you're meeting a fellow Indian tribe or somebody you're going to trade with or have relations with diplomatically. Beautiful scene, once again, communicates an experience of the Sioux people. Here we have another EC8, Caribbean. We have an Oriole, Montserrat. So we have the volcano in the background, which actually erupted. Beautiful story about how England incorporated the people that had to evacuate the island in that time. But we also have an Oriole that's only found on the nation of Montserrat, so it's really nice imagery there. Czech Republic, we have the lion here, and we also have King Wenceslas's crown, which is a historical person in the Czech Republic's history. Crazy story behind that. On this side, we even have the linden tree, which is a popular tree, a symbolic tree, and one that they find in their area quite frequently. We also have the Metrovian eagle, a huge symbol of that area. Oop. We have another from Nguia. This is a lobster. It's the wrong lobster. This is another example of getting it wrong. If I were in Nguia and I saw this, I would probably be angry because that's not the lobster that lives there. This is a northern lobster, not a southern Atlantic lobster. So that would probably make me a little bit upset. So just seeing the random coins that I pulled here and the different artwork, I didn't even go through all of them, but you get the idea that this is definitely a art form in its purest sense. We have an element here in 3 nines or 4 nines purity that is explaining, it's communicating the experience of a person or a people in a way that when you look at it, hopefully you are in that frame. You get to see that shot. You get to feel a little bit of what it's like historically or culturally to be among those people. So that's what I wanted to bring to you today, so that you saw coins a little bit more like I saw coins. And maybe I'm crazy, and you can let me know in the comments if you're like, no, it's just silver, whatever. That's cool too. But I wanted to throw that out there. So as always, please remember to stay classy and current with the culture of currency.